Do I need a new stream key? Okay, I think we're back. Just gonna give it a minute.
Yeah, you can go. So I just covered the fixture difficulty ratings, both from Gaffr and the charts that I've done myself on the fixtures based on three of the three best boosts to use. So that will be uploaded. So Joel is now going to move on to the next section of the stream.
Okay, so 1 second while I get this up. So what I've looked at, obviously did quite a lot of stats last week, but there's just a couple more things to look at today. So I'm going to, first of all, look at some clean sheet data. First of all, actually, good to show you Whitebeard's website. He's recently put up this amazing website full of data from last season. As you can see, there's all sorts, really. There's shots on target, percentages, bonus points, even things like crosses and interceptions. So really good job from Whitebeard, and this will be very useful. He said he's going to be updating this season's data as we go, which is really great. So I have used this data to basically work out the half clean sheets that each team got in total last season. Because obviously with Gaffr, the difference to FPL is that you don't get 4 points for a full clean sheet, but rather 2 points for each half clean sheet where defenders play 30 minutes in that half. First of all, though, just on your left here, on FF Stuff's website, they've also put up clean sheets, and I have changed it to goalkeepers, just so you can see the teams and who got the most clean sheets. Obviously, Swansea were really good defensively last season, as well as Bidwell and Roberts being great assets to have from an attacking standpoint. Defensively, they were pretty solid, especially in the first half of the season. So 20 clean sheets for Swansea. And then I'm quite surprised, actually, to see Reading with 17. But just goes to show that, actually, they were quite solid last season. Even though, obviously they started...
Are you sharing your screen?
I do apologise, I'm not. There you go, you should be able to see now what I have.
I think my video's gone off as well.
Yeah, it'll be back. That has happened with your video. I'll just carry on. So, as I just said, Swansea 20 clean sheets, Reading 17, along with Norwich, who we won't talk about because they've been promoted, and also Millwall. My feeling is that Swansea will regress. If we just change this to second half of the season, you'll see a different story from Game Week 24. We've got Watford and Norwich way out in front, and as you can see, Swansea only kept 7 clean sheets. Especially losing Guay to Palace as well, and Roberts being injured, I don't expect them to be quite as strong defensively this season. Forest got 14 clean sheets, despite the fact that we kind of thought that they weren't great defensively as well. But anyway, there's not much more to say on the clean sheet data. You can read the graph. You don't really need me to say an awful lot on that. Half clean sheets is where it gets interesting, because obviously this is where we earn our points in Gaffr. And this is where Stoke are right up there, as you can see, in second place with 54 in total. And actually, if we go from Swansea all the way down to Cardiff, you'll see there's not all that much between them. Obviously, the difference of 6 half clean sheets only amounts to 12 points in Gaffr. And that surprised me, actually, how close a lot of these teams were. So if you're looking for good defensive teams outside of, obviously, the relegated teams from the Premier League, this is where to look. And Forest, I think, have snuck under the radar a little bit. Obviously, they had a bad season last season, but under Chris Hughton, maybe they will become a bit more solid at the back. They showed signs, certainly towards the end of last season, what was their record at the end of in the second half of last season? 8 clean sheets. It's okay, not too bad. And obviously, traditionally, we know that Millwall are already a good defensive team. Stoke, we already kind of had gathered they were a good defensive team. And even then, it just goes to show actually that cheaper defenders aren't that bad, especially if you're just going by clean sheets and not by attacking returns, because the differences aren't too huge. And actually, maybe when I looked at this and saw actually the differences aren't too huge in terms of points, it made me wonder whether we should put even more emphasis on attacking returns from defenders. I don't know what you think about that, Kyle, just looking at this table. Do you have any... And is there anything that jumps out at you that we can take from this particular table?
This is a big thing with defenders. So I always look for wing backs that have a good attacking output. So have plenty of dribbles and key passes in their normal play, which means then that they're more likely to get bonus points even without returns. The returns, and even thinking back to last season, I owned Bidwell, Roberts, and Aarons throughout most of the season, and they didn't really need the attacking returns most times. It was sort of a bonus on top of the bonus points and clean sheets from both halves that they'd get. When you add together the bonus points, half clean sheet points, and returns as well, wing backs, wide defenders are really good to own.
Mm. Yeah, and actually it's quite striking to see that Bournemouth on the same level as Luton and Preston. Especially Luton, we wouldn't consider themselves to be a particularly defensively strong team, but they weren't all that bad last season from that standpoint when we look at the data. And actually, it does make me think that we can find good value even in the cheaper defenders, even though I know a lot of us are going to be going big at the back. I don't think we need to worry about having one or two 4.5 defenders. They can tick along with points quite easily, as we can see from this data. So that's half clean sheets. Take what you will from that table. Use your own judgment on how good you think the teams are now, and compared to last season with particularly outgoings and players coming in. And obviously bear in mind the fixtures. But yeah, it just goes to show that the differences aren't huge. From the worst defensive teams to the top defensive teams when we split it into half clean sheets, because I think the difference is more striking when we deal with full clean sheets. I guess if we go over to the FF Stuff graph, we can see that quite easily. The difference in, for example, if we take Kaminsky of Blackburn, I think he played the whole season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a 10 clean sheet difference there, whereas here it's only a 12 half clean sheet difference. Just thought that would be interesting, a bit more data to look at. And very, very quickly, I'm just going to bring up Whitebeard's website. And let's just have a quick look at shots on target by position. Purely because, shots on target is one of the factors for bonus. And we can see, players that took lots of shots last season. Whitebeard has helpfully included as well the players that have come in from other leagues. Obviously, it's harder to analyse that data because other leagues are of different strengths. But when you look at this, quite clearly, we knew that Armstrong took lots of shots, but just see how far ahead he is of all other players in the game this season. 85 compared to Johnson Clark-Harris's 60, which is obviously in League One. And then you have to go down to Kiefer Moore, amongst forwards this is, 43 shots on target. That's almost double of anyone else. And obviously, we knew he took a lot of shots, but I didn't realise it was that much in comparison to others. I don't know how many Ivan Toney had, because he's obviously not included for obvious reasons. Same with Pookie. So if he stays, you can see that I can now see why he was getting 4 bonus quite often, even when he didn't return, just from accumulating shots on target. So obviously Moore and Solanke are up there. Solanke actually I thought wouldn't be quite as high as that, but Bournemouth did create a lot of chances, so I guess it makes sense. Anike of Birmingham, he was obviously in League One, but he also got a lot of shots off. Let's see, any other notable mentions to look at? Yaku Mete with 33 off, only 1,679 minutes. Now, obviously he's injured, but if and when he comes back, I'm just going to zoom in actually. I'm just wondering if you can see that very easily on the screen. I don't know, I can't zoom in very easily here, but Mete at 6.5 as a forward could be good when he comes back, but that's not going to be for quite a while. Ben Brereton, again with not great minutes, 2,430 minutes still, got 30 shots on target when compared to the likes of Zhao. I don't think that's bad at all. And then further down, Lucas Jukovic. I'm sure I butchered his name there, but I know I was listening to the EFL Fantasy podcast earlier, and Jamie decided to just call him Duke because at least I tried to pronounce his name right. 25. That's quite high compared to he's on a par with Lyndon Dykes. So he stands out there.
Only 6.5 as well. It might be worth trying to find an outlier in terms of value from forwards.
I think budget forwards is an interesting one because at the moment I wouldn't start with one because we don't know who's going to emerge. I'd rather start with I've got 3 quite expensive strikers, but one I'm sure one will emerge, and it's just finding that striker that hits form and jumping on them quickly. I don't know what you think about that.
I've gone a slightly different track to you. So I've gone for 1 premium in Mitrovic and then 2 slightly more budget. The idea being that I can leave money in the bank to get on whichever premiums forward emerges, whether that's Kiefer Moore, Dominic Solanke, Adam Armstrong, whoever it may be. I've got that money in the bank to be able to get on whoever seems to be playing well and is definitely staying at the club, because with all the premium assets, their futures seem to be hanging in the balance at the moment, and we won't know for sure if they're leaving until game week 6 when the international the European transfer window shuts. But I'm pretty sure that the domestic transfer window shuts after game week 3, so that'll give us a better idea.
That's a very interesting strategy. Very different to just take all that money out and go for quite cheap players and then just upgrade from there rather than kind of having different price points. It's interesting. Joshua Fragile says, is it worth starting with Clark Harris? Quite possibly. Obviously, I've seen him in a lot of drafts. Obviously, I think it's 31 goals he scored last season for Peterborough. I think he'll take to the Championship. The reason why I don't have him in there is just because of my strategy, which I'll come on to a bit later. But if it fits into your strategy, then I have nothing against having Clark Harris at 6 million whatsoever. I think he could be great value. What do you think, Kyle?
I started with him. I only took him out because he hasn't played a minute in pre-season yet. He hasn't been involved at all for Peterborough in pre-season, which I find quite odd because he started every game for Peterborough in League One, but apparently has picked up a knock in pre-season. But yeah, he's not a player that gets injured very often, so I do wonder if he's pining for a move to a different club, maybe in the Championship.
I heard he's been linked with West Brom, and imagine a 6 million striker starting for West Brom.
It would be quite quite unique in terms of a fantasy game to have a player priced at 6 million playing for arguably the best team in the league. yeah, we'd have to massively adjust all our strategies to account for Clark Harris at West Brom. No doubt about it.
If he started, his ownership in like the top 100 would be probably like 98 of the top 100 or something crazy like that. Would end up owning him probably. We don't really want that for the sake of the game, I would say, but yeah, I can see him being, if he does get that move, being very highly owned, assuming that he takes to the Championship football and can finish off his chances that will inevitably be created by the likes of Diangana and Alex Mowat and all their creative talents. So yeah. Anyway, should we move on to midfielders?
Yeah.
Midfielder shots on target. See if there's anyone who stands out here. Okay, so right at the top, we've just got League One players. Now, Malik Wilkes with I saw 140 and I thought 140 shots on target, but that's just shots. 56 shots on target. That's pretty high. So of the players that were in the Championship last season, Jamal Lowe tops it at 39. He got 14 goals last season. He's undoubtedly Swansea's best attacking asset. Could play up front, 8.5 million. I won't be having him because I'm not convinced on Swansea. But he is the pick of the bunch there. Just to reiterate, the data is mostly taking into account teams that were in the Championship last season. Danjuma, I'm not really going to focus on him because he's probably going to leave. And then Gustavo Hamer, fourth in the list of players who played in the Championship last season, 5.5 million for Coventry. Obviously, O'Hare's in a lot of drafts. Would you consider Gustavo Hamer looking at that?
So this was pointed out on the EFL Fantasy podcast when they covered Coventry, and they compared him with Callum O'Hare, and they said that the 0.5 price difference would edge them towards Callum O'Hare, who plays higher up the pitch as an attacking midfielder. Gustavo Hamer is more of a centre mid, but similar to Alex Mowat at West Brom, he's on the set pieces, so that comes into consideration for me. And he's good at spotting a pass. He's a set piece expert, and he likes to shoot from distance. And last season at times he was a better fantasy asset than Callum O'Hare. But I think it might go the other way next season. I just think that O'Hare's returns are more sustainable than Gustavo Hamer's, as he was relying on a lot of long shots, which might not always go in, whereas O'Hare is usually more involved in the attacking play in the final third for Coventry.
I think that's a fair assessment. That's a good point. If a lot of these are shots from distance, then obviously if we're looking at XG, I don't know what the XG data is on these two, but maybe it's significantly lower. And I can do a price comparison because I was going to compare I could do a player comparison of O'Hare and Hamer. Should we do that now?
Just go on.
While we're on the subject.
Get it up on my screen.
Okay, I've switched over to you now.
So I was going to cover this price point myself in the stats section.
I think you might have turned off your video, actually. I can't see you anymore.
Yeah, I think it wasn't showing up very well. It was just a static screen, so I just turn it off.
Fair enough.
So the 5.0 to 5.5 price bracket is an interesting one for me. So I had a bit of a dilemma over the last few days over my fifth midfielder, and Gustavo Hamer is not really someone I considered in great detail, in great depth, but Callum O'Hare was, along with Josh Murphy at Cardiff. So I'm just trying to. For some reason, it's not letting me search for Hamer. I'll try searching for him again. Ben Hamer. No. Is that the right spelling? Hamer?
I believe so, yeah. Let me just check.
Yeah, for some reason it's not coming up.
Yeah. Okay, that's strange.
Yeah, but anyway, I think we can conclude that O'Hare is the more attacking player, with the higher returns per minute. The more shots and more key passes. Although I don't think so. This is FB ref, sorry, which cover all the attacking and defensive, the key metrics, both per 90 and in total. But yeah, I compared Josh Murphy to Callum O'Hare, just because they were the two standout 5.0 mids for me. I was on Alfie Doughty previously, but I watched Stoke play in pre-season, and I noticed that Alfie Doughty was playing left wing back in when we switched to a back five, so that put me off him. I think Doughty might play as a left wing back in more difficult games, so I looked instead Murphy and Callum O'Hare. I'll just zoom in so you can see the stats better. I think the per 90 stats are really interesting. So Josh Murphy games last season, and I think this was mainly due to Harry Wilson's involvement at Cardiff. So Josh Murphy was very much second fiddle to him, they both play in a similar position. But I do wonder if Josh Murphy will start more games now that Harry Wilson has moved to Fulham, after being on loan at Cardiff last season. But I think the per 90 stats are really interesting because so Josh Murphy comes out on top for goals and assists per 90. So if we average his returns out in terms of 90 minutes, and if we expect him to start, maybe not as many games as Callum O'Hare, who's very important to Coventry, but we might be able to expect him to outscore O'Hare. And I think Cardiff are a more attacking team than Coventry. Certainly based on last season's data, Cardiff were 6th overall of the current clubs. Cardiff were 3rd of the current clubs in the Championship, and Coventry were towards the bottom. So yeah, if Josh Murphy is a starting player for Cardiff next season, he could be the 5.0, the 5th midfielder to own. I think he's being underpriced, but sort of justifiably, having only made 12 starts and not being a starting player for Cardiff.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. He's one I'd never really considered, but that 5 million midfielder slot is one that I think I'm going to need. I don't have him at the moment. I have O'Hare. We'll come on to our drafts very, very soon. Yeah, that's a really good, really interesting piece of info. It will maybe make me consider him. I probably will end up sticking with O'Hare for another reason, which I'll come on to later. But Yeah, that's something that I hadn't thought about before, so that's really interesting. So let's go back to the data that we were looking at before. So we're on midfielders, and yeah, we're looking at shots on target. So let's just see if there's any others that stand out, and then we'll go to defenders. Then we'll go on to our current drafts. So obviously Nick Powell's up there, Stanislas is up there, despite not having a whole load of minutes. Speller and Scott Sinclair, 20 shots on target each is not too bad. O'Hare with 20, Barkhuizen with 20. Just some options to keep an eye on, but nothing is really standing out to me here. Is there anything you've spotted here before I move on to defenders?
I can't see your screen. I don't know if there's a lag. Oh yeah, I can see it now. So in terms, I'll just look myself quickly. So in terms of shots, I'm just on FF stuff myself. So I haven't really gone into like the best players for shots from each position and key passes. I've looked broadly in terms of who gets the most performance bonus scores. But yeah, it's something I need to have a quick look at. But I have a rough idea of who the best players are in terms of shots.
Yeah, let's go on to defenders then, and then we'll get on to our drafts, because I think that's probably the most exciting part of the stream. But yeah, let's just quickly look at defenders, see if anything comes up. And oh wait, no, is that sorted by shots on target? Yes, it is. And surprise, surprise, my favourite player in the whole of Gaffr, Scott Malone, has the most shots on target. Yeah, he's not my favourite player, but we spoke about that last time. So 16 shots on target. I expect him to maybe even do better than that this season. He gets so far forward for Millwall. So potentially overlooked by a lot of people just because he plays for Millwall, and actually there's a lot of defenders at 6 for the relegated teams that look pretty good. So he's not in my team either. But then, I'm sure that I'll end up owning him at some point this season. Sean Morrison, again, I'm not surprised by that. 15, a constant threat from set pieces. Pippa, 13 for Huddersfield, does surprise me a little bit as a wing back. That is interesting. Even outscoring Connor Roberts for shots on target. So that is an interesting little piece of data that, Toffolo is nowhere to be seen here in the data. Does that sway us towards Pippa? Although we obviously need to consider assist potential as well. About 5 million. When Huddersfield go on a good run as one of their wing backs, he could be all right. Matt Clark for 12. Who did he play for last season? Matt Clark. He's mentioned on the pod earlier.
Matt Clark was at Derby. I believe he's now at West Brom.
Yes, he is now at West Brom.
Yeah.
So coming down, obviously not surprised with Bidwell being relatively high on this list. McNair. Did he play in midfield at times? I feel like he might have done. But 6 million is an awful lot for him. Let's see. And then we just get into territory of kind of standard numbers. I don't think there's anything we can read into. Players kind of under 10. Luke Garbett got 14 for Blackpool. I think he'll be on free kicks. He's quite good at set pieces. I'm not saying that because I have any knowledge of League One. Just from his time at Everton, and the games that he did play, he did have a good left foot on him. I think he did take set pieces for Blackpool, but you'll find that out, I'm sure, on the preview. Oh yeah, this is a good time to shout out the EFL Fantasy preview pods. If you want specific information on specific teams from fans of those specific teams, that is the place to go. The first one came out today for the first 8 teams. It was so useful. There were a couple of things that I took away that were really, really interesting, and things that I didn't know already. Their championship knowledge is fantastic. But all of Jamie and Angus and Dan, they all have great knowledge. And obviously the correspondents support the teams as well, so they will have good ideas of the players who are going to play. So I'd really recommend you listen to them. And I'm also looking forward to their podcast with Rune, who won the game last season, because I just would be really interested to hear his perspective on the whole thing from his side of things after all of that. Okay, so unless there's anything you can see that you want to mention in this data, should we go on to our current drafts?
Yeah, I'm do the team plannings.
Yeah, okay. I will go over to your screen then now. Should be on there now. Okay, over to you, Carl.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a spreadsheet that I just yesterday, just over the season. So it's got everything that I would usually use. So last season I was very young in that I wrote everything down in a notepad, but this season I'm taking to spreadsheets to refine my process as a gaffer. So what I do is I have a plan in place in weeks ahead, which I try and stick to as best I can, so I don't overthink things or be too knee-jerk my reactions to game weeks. I also have a watch of players that I keep for future game weeks. So as you'll see on the screen, I have which I'll narrow down when it comes to making a transfer. But the best transfers for me and my strategy, I've identified John as a player that I'd like to sign for my team in game week 3, along with Kiefer Moore. So I would need to sell Josh Murphy in game week 3 to free up a Cardiff slot for Kiefer Moore if he stays at Cardiff.
Kyle, you're
after
rotated
after
90
the window
degrees.
Closes.
You're rotated 90 degrees, which is quite funny to see. There we go.
Yeah, it's my camera's not liking me today.
I promise by midway through the season we'll have our technical side of things sorted, guys.
Ever reliable. So this sheet, and I can share it to you if any of you want help with team management in terms of planning in weeks. So I this sort of approach to really useful last season. It helped me finish 44th. It helped navigate all the double game weeks that we had last season, as well as all 9 boosts over last season. So I have a boost planned in game week. I'm planning on using Park the Buzz as my defence. All have favourable defensive fixtures. So I have Semi Ajayi at home to Luton, Perry and G, and Aidan Flint away at Blackpool. Andy Yedom at home and Jack Stacey away at Nottingham. And I think they're all like clean sheets and maybe a couple attacking returns on top. It's a good opportunity to buzz on in the season because, as I've mentioned, a lot of the premium assets going forward are rumoured to be leaving, and there's question marks over they will be staying in the Championship, and with speculation absentees, agents getting in players' ears and suggesting giving games a miss to avoid getting injured. So my at the moment is to avoid all uncertainty, really, and go that I know will be staying club at least. All players that are fairly settled at their clubs. I wouldn't want to own a player that is transfer listed or even rumoured to be leaving, because it gives me unneeded concern going into, and I don't want problems to fix early on in the season. Looking to either to transfer him with good fixtures rather of necessity. So I have 4 million left in the bank, which will help me decide later on, sort of towards the end of the window, who premium asset to get into my. And on my watch list, I've it's Arno Danjuma, Kiefer Moore, and Dominic Solanke, my premium assets to watch, and I will be transferring in one assets in game week 3. Where I've used my partner buzz. So yeah, different strategy maybe to what most Gaffr managers might be looking to do at the moment. To keep 4 million spare in the bank is not going to be a popular strategy, but it might reap dividends. At this early stage, there's a lot of uncertainty over which players are leaving and is staying. So I just like to know which players will be staying in the from game week 1. I do have premium assets in Alexander, and it seems to have settled his future. Now he looks to Fulham, and with Fulham's good fixtures, him and Harry Wilson will be very good assets, and I attacking returns from them in weeks. So lineups then, Park the Buzz require bench 3 attacking assets. In my case, that would be Ben Briett, Stephen Fletcher, George Grant, which all have tricky fixtures in game week 2. And why Park the Buzz make. And in game week 3, I'll have or away at Peterborough and Swift at home to Bristol City. Are both good fixtures. So yeah, that's my plan going into the first 3, and I hope to be able to stick to this plan. But if anything changes, I'll have backups such as Darnell Furlong at West Brom, Brian at Fulham, Callum O'Hare at Coventry. Josh Murphy continues to be not a regular starter. So what do you make of that, Joel? Are there any obvious changes that you'd make to my team?
Well, I think it's quite hard to answer that question because obviously I would make lots of changes to that team because I would pick the team that I've chosen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite hard to say. Obviously, it is important to be flexible, and that's something that I'm trying to do in all my fantasy games this season. Like in both Gaffr and FPL, not having a 4.0 defender. Like in FPL last season, I started with Vinagre and got completely burnt and found myself taking early hits and early transfers that I didn't want to make, where I was putting out fires rather than being able to proactively hop on the right form assets. And obviously, with your strategy, you've kind of almost taken that to the extreme with 4 million in the bank and having, you have the ultimate flexibility. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. Whether those sacrifices you've made on budget will pay off in the long run, being able to hop on pretty much anybody in the game. So it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy. It's a bit out there, and it could work. Yeah, we'll see.
So Matt Schubacher has just left a message about Mitchell at Blackpool, who has been playing left wing out of position in pre-season and is 4.0. So he might be someone that, if you're looking for a budget enabler, I didn't think that there would be any need at this stage in the season to require enablers in your team in defence. But yeah, if you did want one to fit in those premium assets, if you wanted to gamble on a couple of them staying, Mitchell at Blackpool might be the good enabler.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I heard that earlier today. I'm trying to remember who flagged it up. I think it might have been on the Planet FPL podcast on Gaffr. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think I'll start with him just because it's Blackpool. I don't really want to, like I said, I don't really want to start with a risky 4.0 defender. But yeah, it's certainly one to keep an eye on that. It's not often you get these John Lundstrom-esque potential picks. I mean, John Lundstrom, we all saw what he did that season, so you never know. Yeah, and it's a good spot if you manage to spot that. That's great. Should we move on to mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
sorry, just on Ben Brereton, I didn't mention, but I noticed when I was looking at stats from last season that Ben Brereton was quite high up. So yeah, I flagged him up as someone that might be a good asset to own, while Adam Armstrong's future is, seemingly in the balance. So if Armstrong misses the opening couple of game weeks, then Ben Brereton might be the starting centre forward at Blackburn.
Yeah.
And he might be a good asset to own. Although the fixtures the fixtures don't stand out for him. He's at home to Swansea and away at Millwall, but he's in my team as a placeholder.
Yeah, he could become a good option. For me, he's just firmly in the kind of list of assets who are a wait and see. But yeah, with Armstrong probably moving, I can concur with that for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I think my screen is showing now. Let me know if not. But yeah, I'm just going to go over to the Gaffr website for mine to run through my draft. So this is what I've got currently. I'm just going to go through the draft, especially for the benefit of those who are listening, and then I will talk strategy as well. So I have got Dieng and Moore in goal. Furlong, Tete, Townsend, Olasunde and Stacey as my defenders. Harry Wilson, Willock, Phillips, Callum O'Hare and Jabello in midfield with Moore, McGoldrick and Mitrovic up top. Now, my current plan is to use the away days boost in game week 5, like quite a lot of people. Let's just head over to the fixtures. I know West Brom are away at Peterborough, Bournemouth are away at Hull. What else? What else have we got? Coventry have QPR away, which isn't a great fixture, but I've obviously got a couple of their players for that. Sheffield United away at Luton and Reading away to Huddersfield are all the kind of notable fixtures. Forest away to Derby as well, if you decide you want to include a Forest asset, particularly defensively, that could be a great fixture. So that's what I'm bearing in mind. And obviously, what's quite tricky is balancing the, getting enough away players in so that you don't have to make too many transfers or take hits to plan for it, but also not kind of missing out on the first 4 game weeks. Now, at this point, actually, I'm going to bring up something that was said in the chat a bit earlier about Diangana and saying may he be overrated, because I had him in my team last night. I did quite a lot of tinkering last night and thinking about what to do with my team. Diangana was in my team instead of Phillips. And a lot of the core of the team was the same, but I had to make certain other sacrifices. So, for example, in goal, I had Lumley of Middlesbrough instead of Dieng, who's 4.5. I would have had to have had a 4.5 million keeper. Now, I'll just flag this up actually because I don't think he's been mentioned. I think Lumley's played every preseason game for Middlesbrough so far. And all the Middlesbrough keepers are 4.5, and they're quite a good defensive team. So if you are, looking for a 4.5 keeper, I think it's him or no one. The rest of them, like Schofield, for example, at Huddersfield, they're going to concede an awful lot of goals. So I think he could be a viable option at 4.5, but he's not 100% certain to start until we, enter into the season. So for example, I had to have him. I was tied into having a 4.5 defender, whereas at the moment you can see I've got 1 million in the bank. I've toyed with the idea of having Yeardom, for example, instead of Olasunde. I was absolutely tied into Willock, whereas I've had players like Swift under consideration as well. Things like that. Certainly, I was a lot more restricted in what I could do with Diangana in the team. And quite rightly, whoever it was in the chat said that he didn't return as many times in the Championship last season as an awful lot of assets. And I was picking him based on how he delivered last season in the Championship. 2 seasons ago. And I became aware that Phillips was playing up front. I can't remember who I first heard it from. But that really interested me. And obviously the 1.5 million saving goes quite a long way for me. It allows me to have Stacey instead of a Cardiff defender. It allows me to have Dieng and still have 1 million in the bank, things like that. So, if you're not already aware, Phillips has been playing through the middle in pre-season in the front three for West Brom, and he could be really good value, especially if they don't sign another striker, although they may well do, and that may mean he's not as good an asset. We'll see. But at 7.5 million, he could be an absolute steal. So a few other things to say. Let's see. I've gone for Dieng for the time being. I did have Adam Davis. There may well be, Bursic has started a couple of preseason games, and Jamie said earlier on the Planet FPL podcast that it was a bit of a 50-50, so I wasn't comfortable having Davis in there.
I can answer that for you.
Go on then.
With I feel confident in Davis because he was the main goalkeeper towards the end of last season. O'Neill seemed to have settled on him as being the first choice. So he finished the season as first choice. The last 2 pre-season games, Bursic has started in goal. But I do wonder if Davis will be given the cup games.
Okay.
But we'll know more tomorrow. So we play Wolves tomorrow in our final pre-season game, and then we have a cup game the following Tuesday. And I think I expect Davis to start in goal in both of those. But I think Bursic started to put him in the shop window. I think O'Neill wants to loan him out because he's a very talented goalkeeper, and he's only 20, so he's very young for a goalkeeper. And he might need another loan to give him that bit of extra experience. But Adam Davis is fine in goal. He's always been solid for us, so I don't see any reason to change the goalkeeper.
Well, yeah, that's food for thought, because obviously Stoke are a pretty solid team. And there are quite a lot of, to be fair, good goalkeepers at 5 million. I think it's the price point that a lot of us will be going for. There's obviously Travers at Bournemouth if they don't sign anyone. Bentley at Bristol City. Who else have we got here? Collins at Barnsley. All good options at 5 million. I will probably end up with a 5 million keeper, whether it's Davis, Dieng. We'll see. And I've gone for more. So the Coventry correspondent for the EFL Fantasy podcast thought Moore would start, but quite a few others thought Wilson would start. It's just a case of really hoping you end up with the right one. I could really do with getting him right because Coventry play away in game week 5 for my away days. But if I need to be ultra safe, I might have to go for a Bentley or something like that, or just forget the goalkeeper altogether. So yeah, I really do hope that I will pick the right one. So yeah, that's all about just speaking to fans and looking out for a press conference as well before next Friday. And also look out for the Carabao Cup game, which may or may not, the keeper that starts then may or may not be the right keeper because obviously some teams play different keepers in the cups.
I think it's a good point to make. It's a good point to make. I spoke to FPL Duck, who I think finished in the top 10. I think he was 6th last season.
Yeah.
And he seems to think that the Carabao Cup lineups will be much more telling in terms of who will start in game week 1. And I tend to agree with him on that because it's a competitive fixture. It's a good chance to give players a proper run out. It's almost like a proper warm up game. With all the starting players fit, to get players back into shape and in the right system. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
The Carabao Cup games are on Tuesday.
Yeah, great point that I think. I completely agree with everything you said there. I have nothing to add. That's really, really helpful. Yeah. So my plan then, in terms of transfers moving forward, so the players that I've got that are away in game week 5 at the moment are more. So 1, Stacey, Townsend, Furlong, Phillips, O'Hare. Jabello doesn't count because he's my bench fodder. McGoldrick, and that's it. So I'm going to have to make at least 4 transfers to kind of work my way there. I've toyed, like I said before, with the idea of having Yeardon over Sunday. I do just fancy Preston defensively because they do have a good first 4 fixtures. So I do quite fancy them. I may transfer him out in game week 5. I think that's probably what I'll do. Even though Reading do have good fixtures, I don't have much faith in them at the moment. Interestingly as well, on Cardiff, because all along I've had Ng or Flint as a 5 million defender in my drafts, and he's been in a lot of drafts, but they are ravaged with injury problems and players coming back from COVID, and it just put me off going for a Cardiff defender despite their great fixtures. But yeah, it's just they're an interesting case, I think. Instead, I've gone for Stacey. Saves me a transfer down the line for an away player, because I would be looking at getting Stacey in anyway for game week 5. He seems to be nailed at right back now. Rico has gone, and I believe that means Adam Smith is going to be playing at left back. I plan to bring in a Sheffield United defender for Tete for game week 5. That will be Bogle, or if he's not looking nailed, Egan at 6 million, a straight swap. And then I will probably transfer out Willock or Harry Wilson for an away player as well. And I will wait and see on who looks like a good option close to the time. And obviously Kiefer Moore will leave for Solanke or Zhao. In fact, it's quite likely that both Mitrovic and Moore will leave for Solanke and Zhao for game week 5. And I'm also planning to part with us shortly after that as well. I remember, if you remember, some of you may have seen a tweet from me saying, I really wasn't convinced by Mitrovic just because of how little he played last season. I have warmed to him a bit now, just knowing how good he is in the Championship. I think that could be one. If I was stubborn, I could get badly wrong. So as it stands, he's in my team. Although there's an outside chance he may be Solanke instead, because that will save a transfer further down the line for game week 5. But Harry Wilson should provide some quality service. He is a bonus magnet. He got a lot of bonus points last season. I decided to triple up on Fulham because their opening fixtures are so good, even though they play at home in game week 5, because it is important, I think, not to completely, avoid all players that play home in game week 5 because of that. You just don't want to be missing out on those points, even though you're going to be playing away days later. So it's a tricky balance. I think playing an early-ish away days is good, though, because you can at least use your unlimited transfers to prepare for it to an extent. But still, flexibility is important. Things might be thrown up that change everything. And, I may end up aborting this plan. I hope not. I hope I don't have to abort this plan. But we shall see. So that's where I'm standing at the moment, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm sure it will change because it's still a week away from the deadline, but I feel pretty close to what I want to see in Game Week 1. I'm particularly happy having double West Brom defence. They could keep a lot of clean sheets this season. Their wing-backs, Furlong and Townsend, I wanted to have those two for Game Week 5 and the part of the bus anyway. In Game Week 7, I think they have Derby at home, West Brom, which should be a nailed-on clean sheet.
Yeah, they do.
That's one of the reasons why I'm eyeing up that one. And then also Sheffield United have Preston at home, who don't score that many goals. And then I'll probably have someone else other than Ola Sunday. And Bournemouth have got QPR, which is okay. Yeah. I think that's going to be my part of the best week.
Just on Preston, so it's been mentioned in the chat that Preston have conceded 3 goals to League One Wigan in pre-season.
It's pre-season, isn't it?
I don't know if...
No. Who cares?
Alfred has also put in the chat that why did none of you have Nathan Byrne?
yeah, we were talking about that. He was saying, I might go for Nathan Byrne. I was like, but he plays for Derby, who have 9 senior players. What are you thinking? But, what was your... I can't remember his reasoning. Was it because they have Huddersfield in Game Week 1?
They have...
they have good fixtures, don't
they have the best fixtures on paper, but they also have the worst team on paper.
So I was just like, sure, go for it if that's you do you, but I won't be joining you on that. I'd be interested to hear Alfred if he's still in your team, and whether
Alfred does his own thing. He's very good at what he does.
Hey, he came 4th last season. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he must be doing something right. So maybe we should get Nathan Byrne.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get Nathan Byrne.
Maybe. Just a quick point on Sheffield United strikers as well. Mousse scored a couple, I believe, in their last game. And he is one that I'm looking out for. They're playing 4-3-3. I think that's the system they're going to play, which bodes quite well. I think I'm going to stick with McGoldrick for now, but Mousse, I think he's 8 million, isn't he? Could also be a really good option there. And I'm hoping Kiefer Moore recovers in time for next week. If not, he will become either Solanke with my 1 million in the bank or Zhao potentially. I'm hearing a lot of negative things about Zhao just because of how Reading are at the moment, but Swift is fit now. I know they've lost players. I know they're probably going to regress, but Zhao could still do quite well. I still quite fancy him. We'll see. Do you have any thoughts, Kyle, before we wrap this up?
No, not really. I'd like your draft. I think it's gives you flexibility in terms of price points. You've certainly nailed the price points better than I have. And to leave 0.5 in the bank helps. It looks like a solid team. Are you concerned at all by Kiefer Moore not being involved in pre-season?
A little bit. I've been monitoring that closely, and I may well get rid. But I would really like him to be fit because I like their fixtures a lot. But yes, it's something that I'm monitoring. And if there's any player that's most likely to be transferred out of my team at the moment, well, apart from maybe Dieng and Ola Sunday, it's going to be Moore.
I feel like that with Stephen Fletcher.
Yeah, Stephen Fletcher. Yeah.
I don't know why you laugh. I watched him play Aston Villa in pre-season, and he was winning everything in the air. And we get a lot of crosses into the box. We love a long ball into the box.
Well, yeah, maybe, but it's one of your 3 precious striker spots on someone who, I just feel he could do a lot better than Stephen Fletcher. To be completely honest with you.
I tend to agree, but I look at the options and I think, well, they've either got poor fixtures in the case of Solanke, who plays West Brom in Game Week 1. Otherwise, I'd have Solanke in my team, but just that opening game week just puts me off. And Luton Game Week 2 is it's a tough fixture. I think is it Luton?
No,
I
West
think
Brom
it's
have Luton in game
Nottingham
week 2.
Forest in game week
Yeah.
2 is not an easy fixture either. So yeah, it just put me off. But
See, I think
yeah, I
Bournemouth's
mean,
fixtures are quite good. I mean, if you imagine you know maybe swap the Birmingham fixture in game week 3 with the West Brom fixture in game week 1, just switch those two around, and you might be saying, actually, Bournemouth have some really nice fixtures to start off with, apart from this West Brom game. And I
yeah, but I'd have a plan to transfer him out for game week 3, but because it's the first game week, I'm like, well, I'll I'll start without him and then reassess after game week 1.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I still
Yeah,
think
that's my current thinking.
he could end up sneaking his way into my team. Just thinking long term, um, and Bournemouth can always score goals. So I think he could sneak his way into my team. But I do fully understand what you're saying. West Brom is obviously probably the hardest fixture in the league this season. So yeah, cool. So shall we
Yeah,
quickly
I think
mention?
that I think it rounds up all of the segments that we wanted to cover. Um, we don't really have time for the Super League. We could do another hour on the Super League, but should we go over quickly our Super League draft?
Let's spend five minutes on it. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, back over to you.
I'll just spend 2 minutes just because that's pretty much how long I've spent on my draft. So Gaffr Super League is a new game from Gaffr. So it involves the top 4, the big 4 clubs from the top 4 leagues around Europe. So yeah, it's a tricky one because the way that the game weeks are laid out, some leagues will have blanks when other leagues don't. So, for example, Germany and England, their leagues have a blank in game week 4, whereas the other 2 leagues don't. So it's just something to be wary of. And I think it's important to have a good spread of players from all 4 divisions. But yeah, my strategy and my team name is Justice for De Bruyne, because I just feel like in FPL, De Bruyne gets so overlooked, and what a phenomenal player he is. And I think the Gaffr point system is something that will reward Kevin De Bruyne's good attacking plays, his good creative numbers. So I'm looking forward to owning De Bruyne in the Gaffr Super League. I'm starting him as vice captain away at Tottenham, and I've gone for Lewandowski, my captain. So I've opted to. I've spoken to you about this, Joel. I don't think it's a cover thing. I think it's more a use of budget thing. So I've opted to go for Griezmann as my Barcelona asset over Messi, and use the funds for Lewandowski. So yeah, that's my brief strategy. But I need to find a way of finding enough cheap players to be able to afford Lewandowski and Lionel Messi in the same team. How's your Gaffr Super League team shaping up?
I'll show you now. I mean, Messi and Lewandowski in the same team, to me, I think that's probably impossible. Not gonna lie. Why is it not showing? Okay, I think we're all good. The stream might be dying. The stream might be down. Again. No, I think we're okay. Do let me know if it goes down, Kyle. This is what I've got at the moment. I did quite a bit of research yesterday into this because there were quite a few teams that I didn't know the squads that well for, especially in the French league and the Bundesliga. So I did a fair bit of research, looked at the players that the top scorers and assisters for their teams, which defenders would start, looking for some value defenders, for example. And this is what I've settled on for the moment. By the way, I love this idea. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I think the boosts are really good. I think the boosts are really even as well, evenly matched. I was thinking about the multipliers that you gain from each of them the other day, and they're very, very similar for all of them. So I think that's going to be interesting. I actually remember when I was in high school, they did a fantasy game just for schools. I can't remember what website it was, and it started in like October, midway through the season. And at one point, I remember that you could pick like 3 players from some European leagues in your team. It was reminding me of that. So I remember picking Messi in those in like high school. But yeah, so this is what I'm on at the moment.
Was it Schools Fantasy League?
Yeah, something like that. Did you do that as well?
SFL, yeah. I think I played that. I finished first in my schools because I realised that you could transfer players out in the same game week like you can in Sky.
Oh, nice.
And I don't think anyone realised.
I'm pretty sure I didn't realise that. I was definitely a casual back then. I hadn't got into FPL properly at that point. But I did think I did all right, actually. I was reasonable at it. Yeah. So I had a draft before that had Messi, Mbappe and Salah in the midfield, which is quite good, but I had to make some sacrifices. I couldn't have had a Liverpool defender like Robertson. I had to have pretty much all 4.5s at the back. And Benzema is the same price as Salah, but I could get a better midfielder. Like I could get a 6.5 midfielder in Yaziki, whereas there weren't really any 6.5 million forwards. So this is what I'm on at the moment. Angelino is very attacking for Leipzig. I don't really have much more to say on it. That's what I've got so far. I will be learning a lot about these players. Boost strategy will probably be playing the Serie A or La Liga boost in game 10 when they double. I'm probably going to play the budget boost at some point. The budget boost could be quite good if you could get 4.5 keeper and like all 4.5 defenders. So that's 6 players. Let's just show you that boost. That boost is 2.5 multiplier for all budget players. So keepers less than 5, defenders less than 5, midfielders less than 6.5, and forwards less than 7. Aside from Greenwood, I'm not sure. It's hard to tell if there are any options, especially in the strikers, any budget options that work. But if you could get like all your defenders, that's 6, plus Greenwood, plus a couple of others, that's a lot of multipliers for. And bearing in mind the cheap assets.
I've noticed. I noticed Thomas Munier and Torgan Hazard are both 4.5 at Dortmund.
Yeah, I've got Hazard on my bench at the moment. Yeah.
Might be good options for the budget boo.
Yeah, and bear in mind as well, these are cheap options, but they are the best teams in their respective leagues, so they're still going to score highly. Like this is going to be a much higher scoring game than any other fantasy game for that reason. So, even though they're budget assets, they can still rake in the points, especially if they've got good fixtures. So yeah, that's it really. I can't wait for this game. I think this is going to be really good. I'm still waiting for some content to appear on Twitter. I think there was a penalty takers thread earlier, but I'll be all over that. If I ever see any podcasts or anything around that. So yeah, that is it.
And thanks for joining us, guys. Cheers to everyone in the chat. And hope you found our first team planning video useful. You can access my team planning spreadsheet and just get in touch with me via DM and I'll send you a link to that. Good luck for the first 3 game weeks, and we hope we've covered enough to get you by in those first 3. Cheers for joining me again, Joel.
No worries, it was fun, and can't wait to start now. We're going to be getting stuck into the actual game week soon. It's fantastic.
Definitely can't wait to get going. I was slightly nervous before starting this video, but it's I've come up with a plan. I think I've finalised in my thoughts what I wanted to do. Just going over with you the options that are available as confirmed my thinking, let's say, and I'm pretty happy with my draft at the moment, and we'll see what happens. can't wait for the new season to start. So, yeah, that's the first planning video. Cheers, guys.
See you soon. Bye. Okay.
Bye.
That has ended. Oh, I forgot to